Star Wars. Welcome to my presumed final ranking of Star Wars now that the saga is done. Hey guys, Harry Thomas here, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my presumably final ranking of the 15 movies in the Star Wars saga. Including the 9 SkyWalker episodes and the other spin-offs. Without further ado, if you want to know my ranking from my favourite to least favourite, then just keep watching and may the Force be with you. At number 15, at the very, very bottom, of course it was going to be the Star Wars Holiday Special. The fans complain about the prequels. They complain about the sequel trilogy. They even complain about the Clone Wars and the Ewok movies. But I found a thing in the Star Wars universe worse than Jar Jar Binks. The thing that George Lucas himself admitted just wanted to take a freaking sledgehammer and demolish every single copy of the holiday special. You know what, George? Just hand me a sledgehammer and I would be proud to do that job. This steaming pile of Wookiee shit is just Chewbacca's Wookiee family watching a bunch of boring videos, including a porno, and you know that stir, whip, stir scene. Well, this is what I say to this special. Fuck this special. At number 14, Ewok Caravan of Courage. I think we can all agree this is the worst of the two Ewok movies that were made. Why in the galaxy's arse would they ever think a spin-off about the Ewoks would appeal to anybody? Of all the characters they could have picked for a spin-off, they picked the damn Ewoks. This movie has such a non-existent plot that it deserves to be erased from the Jedi text, and this was only made to sell Ewok teddy bear merch. At number 13, Ewok Battle for Endor. Sure, this one does have a slightly more action-packed based plot to it, but it's still one hell of a garbage Star Wars movie. I mean, and the problem with these Ewok movies is that they are far too fantasy and not sci-fi enough. Star Wars is supposed to be more sci-fi. And these Ewok movies, they don't seem to get that. At number 12, the worst of the live-action cinematically released Star Wars movies, Solo, a Star Wars story, or a cash grab Star Wars story. This is the best example I could think of Disney milking the Star Wars cow more than they needed to. I admit the Darth Maul cameo is the best thing about it, but just one scene of good fan service is just a microscopic midichlorian in comparison to the galaxy of flaws that this unnecessary flop has. Disney couldn't make up their minds at who they wanted to direct, either Phil Lord and Chris Miller or Ron Howard. So you have a product that's a combination of both directors' visions, and that isn't how you structure a movie. Alden Emmerich is such a shitty Han Solo. That is disrespectful to recast Harrison Ford. We know his love story with Emilia Clarke's character isn't going to lead to anything because Han is with Leia in the originals, and Donald Glover was a disgrace as Lando, and Lando in Solo, he fucks droids. I am not kidding. He is a droid rapist, and there's no lightsaber fight. So yeah, Solo is, similar to the Ewok movies, a filler Star Wars movie that has no right to exist. At number 11, Star Wars The Clone Wars, the one animated Star Wars movie. Shame it had to suck this Baz. This is the one cinematically released Star Wars movie I've yet to review, and don't worry, I will get to do a full rant on it soon. This was supposed to be the first few pilot episodes for the Clone Wars TV show back in 2008, but George Lucas, for some reason, wanted to turn them into a movie. And it doesn't work as a movie. It's not designed to be a movie. It's far too episodical, and it never slows down for us to get to know the characters. It's action this and action that. Though the lightsaber fights are swashbuckling, they are the best scenes in the movie. But other than that, the dialogue is beyond childish and even worse than the dialogue from the prequel. Was Yoda it has never been more wasted. And how the fuck does Jabba the Hutt have a son? It was never established in the Return of the Jedi that he ever has any children. Though I also will admit that I have a soft spot for Ahsoka. She is such a badass, and she is easily the best character in the Clone Wars TV show, but the TV show is far superior, but the movie is a great disturbance in the Force. At number 10, sorry Rogue One fans, but Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This is the most overrated Star Wars movie, no contests. I don't see what the fans see in this movie. I have heard fans call Rogue One the best of the Disney Star Wars movies. Maybe the Death Sticks seller from Attack of the Clones sold them a ton of Death Sticks or something for them to make that statement. But while I will give it credit for the awesome Darth Vader scenes and the final battle on Scarif for being visual eye candy at its best, but my God, nothing noteworthy happens in the first or second acts of this movie. The characters, except for Darth Vader, Jyn Erso, and K2SO, were boring. So their deaths had no impact, and the ending is too dark. You could at least let some of the Rogue One team live. Saga Gerrera is the most unnecessary character in the movie, and while I was convinced that was the actual Peter Cushing when they did the CGI Peter Cushing for the Grand Moff Tarkin scenes, I'm like, those scenes would have been better had Darth Vader been in them, interacting with Director Krennic. At number 9, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Please don't hurt me, prequel haters, but I don't think Attack of the Clones is the irredeemable piece of shit that everybody says it is. I take it over Rogue One any day. You can certainly watch it for the action, as it has an all-action climax, and even Yoda showing us his expert skills in the Force and with a lightsaber, and it does give us an answer to where the stormtroopers came from. They were clones on Camino, and Padme is easily the best character in this movie. My God, is she a stunning princess in every single dress she wears on her romantic trip to Naboo with Anakin, and at least there's less Jar Jar this time, but I will agree that Hayden Christensen could have emoted a little more emotion as Anakin here, though this was his first time playing the character, so I'm not as hard on him as others. And at least this movie hinted that Anakin would turn to the dark side when he slaughters the Tusken Raiders, though his love story with Padme could have been faster paced. George Lucas was CGI obsessed when directing Attack of the Clones to the point where it lost just some of the magic. At number 8, The Phantom Menace. I initially said I liked Attack of the Clones slightly better than Phantom Menace, but now I've kind of changed my mind on rewatch. Now I do see a little more positives in Phantom Menace than I do in Attack of the Clones. Happy 20th anniversary, The Phantom Menace, and while it was hailed as a cinema's most disappointing movie at the time, more and more of the fans are beginning to like this movie, which I am so pleased about. At least there are more practical effects and sets than there are in Attack of the Clones here, and the mother and son relationship between Anakin and Shmi is the heart of the movie. It's the most underrated thing about the Phantom Menace, and Shmi is a character I wish we'd seen more in the Star Wars saga, and the epic lightsaber fight between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul is the reason to see the Phantom Menace. Few lightsaber fights in this saga compare. Though, yeah, I do admit Jar Jar did get a little too much screen time, and also the political storyline did take up too much of the movie's running time. At number 7, never has a movie divided a saga more than The Last Jedi. My God, I have chatted about The Last Jedi on my channel constantly, and I'm so sorry I constantly have it as an example of a disappointing movie. If you are one of the lovers of The Last Jedi, then props to you. But if you're one of the haters of The Last Jedi, then I also see where you're coming from. I'm personally neither a lover or hater of this movie. I wish it would have followed the direction that I predicted it was. Kathleen Kennedy and Disney picking Rian Johnson to direct and write this movie made no sense. It should have just been J.J. Abrams. Then this trilogy would have had a total cohesive narrative if it's one director's vision. But yeah, Rian Johnson was like a screw Snoke, screw Rey being a Jedi, and he made Luke act out of character, and he gave us maybe the worst lightsaber fights in the entire saga, and the Finn and Rose Canto Bite stuff. One of the worst storylines in Star Wars history. Just take that out of the movie. Though at least The Last Jedi does look gorgeous from a visual standpoint, and the Porgs are what the Ewoks should have been in terms of adorableness. At number 7, the weakest of the original Star Wars trilogy, sure, but still a classic end to a classic movie trilogy, Return of the Jedi. The Ewoks are the worst thing about Return of the Jedi, but other than that, Return of the Jedi is a practically perfect finale. It has a cracking opening rescue at Jabba's palace, and Luke finally gets to be the badass Jedi that the trilogy has been building him up to be. And the revelation that Leia was Luke's sister was a genuine and original revelation. That I didn't see that coming, that Leia was pick Han over Luke, and Luke and Vader and Palpatine's confrontation on the second Death Star. That was the moment where every single Star Wars fan cheered with glee to see Vader finally redeem himself and return to being Anakin. And yeah, at the time we were sure this was the final Star Wars movie we would ever receive. So I'm sure all the fans back in 1983 would have cried until the very end of the end credits. At number 5, the most underrated Star Wars movie, Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, and what everybody would agree is the best Star Wars prequel easily. No comparison. It's the one prequel with the storyline the fandom cares about. We get to see how Anakin transformed into Darth Vader, and my god, is it the most heart-wrenching tragedy ever told on film. How Anakin was fearing that he would lose Padme if she gave birth to their new child. So he was convinced the only option was to become Palpatine's apprentice and annihilate the Jedi and form the Empire. George Lucas was aware of the fan backlash to the previous two prequels, so boy did he up his game bigger than he has ever done for Revenge of the Sith. He upped the lightsaber fights, he upped the CGI, he upped the acting, he upped the storytelling, and Revenge of the Sith has more lightsaber fights than any other Star Wars movie, a record-breaking 5 in just one movie, and yeah, Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion, is an even more emotionally hard-hitting finale to a trilogy than Return of the Jedi. Also, this has the greatest John Williams score of the prequels, and one of the most downright iconic scores for a Star Wars movie. At number 4, ironically, my 4th pick is Episode 4, A New Hope, or just Star Wars, and this is the very first Star Wars movie to ever be made and released back in 1977, and my mama was only 11 when she first saw it, and it was one of those movies that changed her life, and she got me into Star Wars, and I'm so thankful to her that she did. Nobody thought this movie would be anything at the time, but George Lucas was convinced that it would be a hit, and boy did he define expectations. I mean, Luke, Leia, and Han, Chewie, 3PO, and R2 are every single movie fan knows those characters' names. The binary sunset scene is one of the most timeless movie scenes, period. And Darth Vader is how you do a classic movie villain, and the final battle where Luke destroys the Death Star with the Force, that is some of the most groundbreaking filmmaking you will ever see. At number 3, what the majority would pick as their favourite Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. This is my favourite of the original trilogy for sure. I mean, Empire Strikes Back was the first ever sequel to be made that said, fuck the theory that sequels are never as good as the original, and it still holds up as one of the greatest sequels of all time. To call the Battle of Hoth one of Star Wars' most epic battle scenes would be an understatement. And Han and Leia's love story is what Padme and Anakin's should have been, especially the "I love you, I know" scene. Luke does grow more into the Jedi that we want him to be with his training from Yoda on Dagobah, and Luke's confrontation with Vader is where the movie truly shines. Especially the most well-known plot twist in the history of cinema, the "I am your father" scene. I'm sure that it was excruciating for the fans at the time to wait 3 freaking years to get closure to that twist. At number 2, The Force Awakens. I mean, this is the best return of a franchise that I have ever seen. And J.J. Abrams, he combined perfectly the old elements of Star Wars and the new. Force Awakens surpasses even the prequels in what Star Wars should be. It is one of the most important movie events of the 2010s, and Rey being my favourite Star Wars character ever, Daisy Ridley, will forever be my Star Wars crush, and Finn being a stormtrooper who has a compelling storyline. Han Solo's death being one of the most legitimately saddest moments in all of Star Wars. Kylo Ren being one of Star Wars's most compelling characters, not just villains in general. BB-8s being even more lovable than 3PO and R2, and that cliffhanger was the very cherry on top when Rey meets Luke on Arc 2, and it was at the time my favourite Star Wars movie until one this year topped it. And my number 1 favourite Star Wars movie is The Rise of Skywalker. I've just reviewed the movie, so if you want my full thoughts on this true masterpiece, you will see why I am proud to call it the best Star Wars movie. So that was my ranking of the entire Star Wars saga, another franchise that concluded. Well, I love you guys, thank you for watching, I hope you guys enjoyed this ranking. And what are your favourite and least favourite Star Wars movies? Please comment and let me know. Please like this video and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. And I'll see you next time when I do some more Christmas movie reviews. And remember, movies are us. Bye guys.